Hello students and welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Shefali Nagpal from Bhagat Phool Singh Mahila Vishwavidyalaya. Today we are going to talk on the module International Trade Theories Part 2 under the paper International Business Operations. After reading this module, you will be able to understand what fosters the international trade and will learn about the theories of the international trade. Since time immemorial, goods have been moved across the nation and people have made profit by selling the products to the other countries, which were not available there. As per the principle of classical economics, there are four basic factors of production: land, which include land, trees, minerals; labor, the mental and the physical skills of the individual; capital, such as tools, machines, and factories used in the production or to facilitate the production. Fourth is entrepreneurship. The availability of the natural resources, labor, and capital is not sufficient to ensure economic success. These factors of productions have combined and organized by the enterprising people who see the opportunities for making a profit and who are willing to take the risk by producing the goods and services in the expectation that they will be sold. However, for the success in business, it is not just a matter of what resources we have, but also of how well we use them. Since the time of Adam Smith, people have been pondering on what underlines the movement of goods and services across the nations, giving rise to the various theories of international trade. As the time changed, the nature of the economic activities also underwent a change. Accordingly, the ways to look at the underlying factor, they also underwent a change. Several economists propounded various theories of international trade. In this module, we shall study those theories of international trade. Hecker-Olin trade model. This theory was developed by the Swedish economist Eli Hexer and Bertil Olin, which is popularly known as HO theory. This theory states that trade occurs due to the differences in relative prices of different goods in different countries. There is difference in the prices of commodities due to the difference in the factor prices. Different countries have different factor endowments. According to this theory, a country will export goods that use its abundant factors intensively and import goods that use its scarce factors intensively. In two-factor case, this theory states that the countries which are rich in labor will export labor-intensive goods and the countries which are rich in capital will export the capital-intensive goods. The critical assumptions of this model are: there are two countries. Both countries are identical except for the difference in resource endowments. Each country has two factors, that is, labor and capital. Each country produces two commodities or goods. There is a perfect competition in both commodity and factor markets. There is free trade and there are no restrictions on the international trade. All production functions are homogeneous and subject to constant returns. Factors of productions can move freely but cannot move freely between the countries. Two countries have different supply of factors. There are no transportation costs. Each commodity differs in factor intensity. Production function is same in different countries for same products. Demand for the products are same in both countries. There is full employment of factors. On the basis of the above assumption, Olin thesis proposes that country export those goods which use relatively a greater proportion of its abundant and cheap factor and import those goods which involve relatively scarce and expensive factors. The concept of relative abundance will cause the labor-rich country to produce the labor-intensive goods, which will be cheaper than the capital-rich country, and similarly vice versa. In the situation when the countries are not trading with each other, the price of the labor-intensive good is relatively less than the capital-intensive good in the labor-abundant country than the capital-abundant country. Similarly, the price of the capital-intensive good is relatively less in the capital-abundant country than the labor-abundant country. But when the trade exists to earn profit, firms will sell their product to the markets with the higher prices. That is, capital abundant country will sell or export its product in labor abundant markets and win the profits, and vice versa. Let us see the concept of factor abundance. The concept of the country being rich in one factor or other is not very clear. Economists quite often define factor abundance in terms of factor prices. Olin himself has followed this approach. Alternatively, factor abundance can be defined in physical terms. In this case, physical amount of capital and labor are to be compared. Price criteria for defining the factor abundance. The labor abundant country means a country where labor is cheaper than the capital relatively, and the capital rich country is the country where capital is cheaper factor relative to labor factor. For the sake of developing a mathematical equation, let us assume that the trade is taking place between the two countries, say America and India. The price of the factor can be measured as per the following equation, that is Pk divided by PLA is less than Pk divided by PLI. In this equation, P refers to the price of the factor, K refers to the capital, L refers to the labor, A stand for America, and I stand for India. In this equation, we observe that in America, capital is cheaper and hence it is a capital abundant country, while in India, labor is cheaper. Emerging pattern of trade can be explained in the form of the following exhibit. In this figure, the diagram, we can see that XX is the isoquant or equal product curve for the commodity X produced in America. YY is the isoquant representing commodity Y produced in India. It is very clear that XX is relatively capital intensive while YY is relatively labor incentive. Factor capital is represented on y-axis while the factor labor is represented on the horizontal x-axis. PA is the price line or budget line of the country America. The price line PA is tangent to XX at point E. The price line PA is also tangent to YY isoquant at point K. The point K will help us to find out how much of capital and labor is required to produce 1 unit of Y in America. P1B is the price line of the country India. The price line P1B is tangent to YY at the point I. The price line RS, which is drawn parallel to P1B, is tangent to XX at point M. This will help us to find out how much of capital and labor is required to produce 1 unit of commodity in India. Under these given situations, the country America will choose the combination of E. That is, America will produces more capital goods. It will not choose the combination K because it is more labor intensive and less capital intensive. India specializes on the commodity Y by using the cheap factor labor available in the country. The Olin theory concludes that the basis of international trade is the difference in commodity prices in the two countries, which exist due to the differences in the factor prices in the both countries. A country will produce those goods in which factor prices are less and will export it. Students, let us now understand the limitations of the Heckscher-Ohlin-Echo theory. There are various limitations to this theory. Few of them are unrealistic assumption. Beside the usual assumption of the two countries, two commodities, no transport cost, etc., Ohlin theory also assumes no qualitative difference in the factors of production, identical production function, constant return to scale, etc. All these assumptions make the theory unrealistic. Then, another limitation is it's restrictive in nature. It includes only two commodities, two countries, and two factors. So it is restrictive in nature. It is also facing the limitation of one-sided theory. According to the Olin theory, supply plays a significant role than the demand in determining the factor prices and ignore the demand force. If the demand force are more significant, a country rich in capital abundance will supply labor-intensive goods also, which this theory ignores. It is also static. Like Ricardian theory, the HO model is also static in nature. The theory is based on a given state of economy with the given production function and does not accept any change. It also faces a criticism by an economist V. Holds. It is not the factor prices that determines the cost and commodity prices, but it is commodity prices that determines the factor prices. Consumer demand is also ignored. The Olin forgot an important fact that commodity prices are also influenced by the consumer demands. Harbler criticism. According to the Harbler, this theory is based on partial equilibrium. It does not give a complete, comprehensive, and the general equilibrium analysis. Now, let us also understand one of the limitations, that is Leontief paradox. An American economist, Dr. Vasily Leontief, tested the HO theory under the USA condition. He found out that USA export labor-intensive goods and import capital-intensive goods. But USA, being a capital-abundant country, must export the capital-intensive goods and import labor-intensive goods, then to produce them at home. This situation is called as Leontief paradox, which negates the HO theory. It also neglects the other factors. The factor endowment is not the sole factor influencing the commodity price and international trade. The HO theory neglects other factors like technology, technique of production, natural factors, different qualities of labor, etc., which can also influence the international trade. Let us see what is Leontief paradox. In the early 1950s, when Leontief tested his hypothesis that capital-rich country export capital-intensive goods and import labor-intensive goods and vice versa with the help of input-output data of United States economy. His results refuted the HO contention. It was surprising for the economist that US, being a capital-rich country, should export labor-intensive goods and import capital-intensive goods, but was importing capital-intensive goods like crude oil, paper, pulp, copper, lead, metallic ores, and newsprint, which was opposite to the HO theory. Several explanations were looked into for resolving the Leontief paradox. The key factors identified in support of the Leontief paradox were US protective trade policy, import of natural resources, and the investment in the human capital. The US imports of natural resources like minerals and forest products and the export of the farm products further supported its presentation. Investment in the human capital raises the productivity of labor. That is why the export of the US consisted of labor intensive products and its imports were of the capital intensive nature. Modern theories of international trade. Now let us discuss few theories of modern international trade. The issue of international trade has been studied by the modern day economist as well because several changes have happened in the business environment. The present age of multipolar world, emergence of globalization, liberalization and privatization of trade, technological developments, particularly the developments in the information technology have changed the nature of trade. The age of competition has given way to collaboration, and the theories of yesteryears have undergone a shift. Some of the important theories of the modern times are as under: specific factors and income distribution, product life cycle theory, the standard model of trade, the competitive advantage. The following discussion explain these theories of modern times. Let us discuss the specific factor and income distribution model. It was given by the American economist Paul Samuelson and Ronald Jones, who elaborated a trade model based on the specific factors. They say there are at least two reasons why trade has an important influence upon the income distribution. One is resources can't be transferred immediately and without costs from one industry to another. Second was industries use different factors and has a chance in the production mix in a country offers will reduce the demand for some of the production factors, whereas for others it will increase it. While the earlier theory were based on one or two factor, this model proposed three factor model. These were labor, capital, and territory. Products like food are made by using territory and labor, while manufactured products use capital and labor. Labor is a mobile factor and it can be used in both sectors of activity, while territory and capital are specific factors. A country will produce manufacturing goods more when it is capital intensive and has less land than food products, whatever the price, while a country with a territory abundance tends to produce more food. If the other elements remain constant, an equal increase in the capital will mean an increase in the marginal productivity from the manufactured sector, while a rise in the offer of territory will increase the production of food in the determinant of manufacturers. When the two countries decide to trade, they create an integrated global economy whose manufacture and food production is equal with the sum of the two countries' production. If a country does not trade, the production for a good equals the consumption. The gains from the trade are bigger in the export sector for every country and smaller in the sector competed by imports. Product life cycle theory. This theory was given by the Raymond Vernon to explain the observed pattern of international trade and was developed after the failure of HO theory. This theory is based on the concept that during the early stage of the product life cycle, the product is produced using factors at the place of origin, and slowly after it is accepted, it becomes popular. Production shift from the place of origin to the other places. For example, computers were earlier produced in the US. This theory says there are four stages in the product life cycle. One is introduction, second is growth, third is maturity, and fourth is decline. The life of each stage varies for different products and it depends upon the various factors like demand, marketing, other conditions. Raymond Vernon divided the products into three categories based on their stage in the product life cycle and how they behave in the international trade market. One is the new product, second is maturing product, third is standardized product. In this theory, let us understand the first stage of the product, that is the introductory stage. As the name suggests, the product is introduced in the market and the people are not aware of the new product. In this stage, investment and efforts are made to create the awareness and promotion of the product. There are no competitors. The main thrust is on creating demand for the product. In this stage, the expenditure or the investment is more and the profit is less. There are no international trades that takes place in this stage. The second stage is the growth stage. In this stage, the sales start increasing and the profits are generated. The production cost, they also start decreasing due to the economies of scale. The products start becoming popular. Competitors also start entering into the market. In this stage, more expenses are on the marketing of the firm in order to increase the sale. Third stage is the maturity stage. In this stage, the people are well aware of the product and the product has already established its market. Here, sale increases but at a slow pace. Competitors also establish their brand by this time. Expenses on the marketing also reduces in this stage. Profit margin decreases and the sale volume increases at a slow pace. The various pricing strategies are adopted and the international businesses are started. Most common adopted strategy is to reduce cost. The industry contracts and concentrate and products with the low cost win here. In addition, foreign demand for the product grows, but it is associated particularly with the other developed nations since the product is catering to the high income demands. Due to the growing foreign demand, the production units may be established in the foreign markets. Stage 4. It is the decline stage. Once the product has reached its peak, the product and its processes are well known, investment is reduced to minimum. Economies of scale also start increasing and the sales reduces after enjoying the peak in the maturity stage. Profit decline and it may not be feasible to continue with the product. Either it is discontinued or new markets are searched for in the developing countries and the production can be shifted to the developing countries. The standard model of trade. This model was given by the Paul Krugman and Morris. This theory explained the existence of the relative global supply curve resulting from the production possibilities and the relative global demand curve resulting from the different preferences for a certain good. The exchange rate is determined where the global supply curve intersect global demand curve, the rapport between the export prices and the import prices. If other factors remain constant, the improvement in the exchange rate implies substantial rise in the welfare of that country. The competitive advantage theory. This model is propounded recently by the Harvard Business School professor Michael Porter, who proposed the concept of value chain analysis. Competitive advantage means when a company outperforms its competitors and is able to generate high profit for long time. He outlined the three primary ways companies achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. They are cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Porter developed these strategies by researching companies, but it is equally applicable on anyone. Let us discuss the three factors. First is cost leadership. Cost leadership means providing reasonable value at a lower price. Companies can do so by continuously improving the operational efficiency. Differentiation, it means delivering benefits better than anyone else. Company can achieve differentiation by providing high quality product, unique product, faster delivery, or any other component. Companies can earn more profit margins by charging a premium price for this differentiation. Third is focus. Focus means understanding target market better and serving it better. Key focus is on the specific market. It can be through differentiation or cost efficiency. A firm's activity could be segregated as primary and secondary activities. The primary activities were those which directly contributed to creating value, while the secondary activities supported the happening of the primary activities. The firm's individual value chain integrated to become the industry value chain, and this could gain strength if there existed a competitive advantage. The competitive advantage could be created by the way of exclusive access to the resources, that is, vector based development, having low cost investment, or developing innovation led competitive advantage. Porter proposed a competitiveness diamond which comprised on the five determinants. These five determinants are the capacity of internal factors, the specific of domestic market, the links between the industries, domestic competition environment. Nations need to develop and sustain these factors in order to remain competitive in the international trade. So, students, now let us summarize what we have learned so far in this module. The same country imports the good whose production requires the intensive use of the nation relatively scarce and expensive factors. However, Leontief identified a paradox in the all-in theory and observed that America continued to export the products despite of having the costly labor. The modern theories, they extended the factors from 2 to 3 and most recently proposed by the Porter gave the concept of sustainable competitive advantage. Nations could gain competitive advantage not by the factors alone, but could be developed and sustain it with the help of the investment and innovations, which could restrict the competition by controlling the entry of newer players in the market. Thank you. That is all